to me, like one of these things is I want to know how the early church approached prophecy and whether they did or didn't, because, some people have said, well, prophecy went dormant and then was rediscovered at Azusa Street, or along with the speaking in tongues, which just isn't true. So I want to know, how did they approach the nature of spiritual gifts, and how do we learn from them what they did? So there's lots of good questions to be asked in there, Bryce. So then the Shepherd of Hermas then goes from saying, well, this is what you would expect the qualifications of a true prophetic voice to be.
Right.
And then in a paragraph, and then here's some qualifications to look at that would show you this isn't a true prophetic voice. Juxtaposes the two. So the first one he says about someone who's not potentially speaking on behalf of God is that this man elevates himself. So he thinks he has the Holy Spirit, but he elevates himself rather than humbles himself.
The opposite of being quiet. What do you just say?
Yes. Look how it characterizes what they do in such a way that says, look how good what I'm doing is, and draws attention to themselves. Says this person wishes to have the seat of honor. And so they demand honor rather than, as Jesus said, take the least seat and then be invited to that place of honor. They expect the place of honor and are frustrated when they don't have the place of honor. And then he says he is bold, shameless, and talkative. And so you could almost sum that up this way: the way that this person talks is divisive.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The way that this person talks is very divisive in the language
fruit.
they use. The fruit
of what they say does not lend itself to unity.
Yes,
It
exactly.
doesn't unify the people.
Yeah. It's all about me.
Causes division.
It's about what I can get.
Or controversy.
Yes. And lives in great luxury and in many other pleasures. So they make what they do about the income or the finances that it produces. The Didache also talks about this. Is looking at what would essentially, when you make what you do characterized around the money that you can make, and that's the driving force of what
Not
drives what you say.
Spreading the gospel.
Yes.
Right.
And I'll say that to say Paul talks about that a worker is worthy of his wages. I'm not saying that people in prophetic ministry or in ministry in general shouldn't be supported.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. But when you talk a lot more about money than you do about following God.
Well, this is
it's a heart issue. Yes.
You can have two people who are both worth, let's say, $100 million. One is totally owned by his money.
Yes.
His heart is for money, and the other isn't.
Yeah, we've known people like that, right? That have been quite wealthy driving minivans.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
That could afford your Aston Martin or something, right?
Absolutely.
But drives a minivan. And
refuses to be ostentatious about it. And probably most people around him have no clue how much money he has.
Yes.
But he can buy huge plots of land in cash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Another one, he says, this person that doesn't have the prophetic spirit accepts pay for his prophesying, and if he does not receive, he does not prophesy.
Okay. Right. So again, it's wrong to be supported financially.
Yes.
But
considers monetary exchange for what he does.
Right. Well, so getting money becomes necessary to get a word.
And R.T. Kendall, so we've met R.T. a couple times. R.T. Kendall says this. He talks about this in his video on prophetic responsibility, very specifically.
Right.
That this should not be a dynamic in prophetic ministry. And essentially, what a lot of churches do in the sense of their honorarium is they pay a prophetic voice to come there and prophesy over their people. And so there's a monetary exchange, so it shouldn't be that way.
And we've heard stories of people who've been asked to give extra words and they go, well, okay, it's going to cost you this much.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says that the false prophet, he calls this person a false prophet, essentially speaks in response to the desires of the people.
So it tells the people what they want to hear.
Yes, and he uses, this is the language he uses. He fills their souls just as they themselves wish. Yes, and says since he says he is empty himself, then he gives empty answers to empty people. So it's fluff. It's a bunch of fluff.
Right.
That shallow fluff that doesn't have any lasting impact and is essentially forgotten when you leave the meeting.
This is a convicting list.
It is a convicting,
I would like to point out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it.
It
is.
I
live in this place, but you're like, yeah, wow, this is a high standard, as it should be.
As it should be, yes.
Our words are representing the Lord, but
yes,
it really speaks to what you said before, that prophecy absolutely needs to come out of a union and a cultivated place of relationship and union with God.
Yes.
Because you are going to be this bad list if you don't have this union.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I like about the list too, though, is it doesn't mean you have to be perfect as a human being.
No.
There's so much space and mercy, I think, from the Lord, recognizing that we all have like wrong things in our hearts.
Yes.
We all probably carry some level of deception because we've all been wounded.
Right.
Most of us carry some level of trauma.
Right.
From childhood or some point in our lives that we haven't gotten to the place of healing that part yet. And that's okay.
Right.
Like, that's its own journey, like, that's going beside this
right.
one. But what I love about this is it speaks to God's heart that goes, yeah, I understand that you have this area of your heart that's still hidden and still maybe doesn't know me as much as other parts, but I'm not going to disqualify you from who I am because of that, because I understand this. And so I'm still going to speak to you, and I'm still going to speak through you, even though I see your brokenness.
Yeah.
But when we're in the place of intimacy and union with God, the deeper we go in that place, the deeper we become aware of our brokenness.
Right.
Right. And so we're able to heal. Like, it's just this beautiful synchronized.
Yes.
To me, it's this picture of synchronicity where everything is happening all together in a way that could only be supernatural.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, it makes me think of, this is my nerdy side, which is not church history, but it makes me think of the brain and pictures of all the synapses between our neurons happening.
Right.
And how, like, if I tap this, that just caused a flurry of synapses in one piece of my brain, but I'm speaking. So at the same time that this went off, I'm still talking. So my prefrontal cortex is going.
Right.
Right. And if I pinch myself, I can trigger my pain lobes.
Right.
I forget which ones they are. But anyway, to me, it's just the same picture.
Right.
Right? He can use us, and he can heal us, and he can speak to us,
right.
and he can work through us all simultaneously.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we'll be okay.
Yes. Yes, you will be okay.
Sometimes I'm concerned that we won't be okay.
Well,
or that I won't.
And it gives us something to aim for.
Yeah, good news. That's right, Karen.
That's right. It gives us something to aim for. Where we can look at and say,
absolutely.
Okay, so what does it mean to represent the Father well?
Because I think we should. I know striving has been one of those words that's been a bit co-opted to be like this mean, bad word.
Yeah.
But I think we should strive to these standards because
just say endeavor.
No, I'm just going to use the controversial word. Like, if people don't like it, then this is where we need to critically think and go, oh, maybe she doesn't mean it in the most extreme negative.
Right.
I don't. But I do think we should strive, because what that becomes a catalyst to this union.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a motivator. And and if you're striving and you feel condemned, that's not coming from the Lord.
Randy.
Corn
Randy,
boil.
I love you, man. You're awesome.
What is a corn boil?
Well, that's why we need to get down there to Moncton in August on the 28th.
What is even happening on the East Coast? Sometimes, like, I'm Canadian, and yet people say things here, and I go, am I in a different country?
Corn boil in August, it's not prophecy, it's a fact.
On the 28th. I want to go to that.
It sounds.
I feel like there'll be a lot of butter.
Yeah, it does sound like it would be good, huh? Yes. I like Randy and Michelle. That's they had Benito speak at their church way back in the day when Benito was here with the team.
Benito would also enjoy a corn.
He probably would. Yeah, that's right.
I think he would be really excited.
Love
a corn boil. It's a thing.
Yes, it is. We'll need to learn more about this. Yeah. Well, here's just a couple different things, and then oh yeah, it is. So if you have any, we can see if there's anybody. Actually, Lola, if Lola's still on, I may have something for her. So Lola, let us know if you're still on.
Here?
I know that she was on there. That just a couple last things is when it comes to evaluating myself, but also I want to say this stuff not just as self-evaluation, because that's definitely one aspect of it, but we need to learn how to weed out who we should be listening to. And because there's a lot of voices right now, and
we need to be choosy.
We need to be choosy.
We need to be picky.
It's become difficult to figure out who to listen to, and so just personally for me, these are my tests.
Well, we have so many options now because of the internet.
Because of the internet, right? Yes. The lists as given. Butter is better.
No arguments.
Yeah, deep fried butter. Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to get distracted.
We will get distracted.
Oh, see, now people are just talking about corn boils.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Claire,
she's not.
It all corn boils down to us being Claire,
responsible.
You confused Aaron for a second.
I'm the one stuck on corn boil.
Yeah, Claire's right. It all boils down to us being responsible for our own relationship with God, knowing His voice and not relying on a prophetic voice to steer us in any direction.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, 100%. So sorry. No need to apologize.
Part of my looking at those things, like is this person divisive in their language? Are they brash in their in the way they communicate?
Yeah.
Do they denigrate others in the way that they communicate? That kind of stuff. That initially is a warning sign to me. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not speaking on behalf of God, but that's going to put my receptors up.
I've pointed this out to you. There are people that I was following on social media. Yeah. And what I started to notice, because if you follow someone long enough, sometimes people have like drastic changes in their beliefs or how they see things and stuff, or what they start talking about. Anyway, what I started to notice was some of these people who had like pretty big followings, like a few 100,000 people, was that the comments section, which would have maybe 800 or 1,000 comments, started to get really divisive.
Right. Yes.
And to
pay attention to that. Yeah.
And that happened consistently, which made me go, oh, wait a minute. The fruit that's coming from this video or this this thought that they're sharing, this isn't pushing people towards the kingdom. Yeah. Because the comment section is filled with just cattiness and kind of divisive comments and people attacking one another. Yeah. And that was a clue. Didn't convince me and say, oh, false prophet.
Right.
But it definitely made me take a step back.
Maybe I won't give this person as much room to influence me.
And think about because this sounds really good. Yeah. Is this truly representing the Lord though? Because what it seems to be breeding isn't representative of the gospel. Yeah. It's a good qualifying thing to look at, I guess.
Yeah, so we look at the language. And my thing is, in what way is this person leading me and pointing me towards the Father?
Yeah.
And how do I glean more of the Father's heart from this person? If they're not showing me and directing me towards the Father's heart, I'm probably going to relegate them to a secondary place.
But here's my question about statements like that even, right? We don't all know what that means, the Father's heart.
Sure.
What if we're, like some of us are fatherless?
Right.
We didn't grow up with a father.
Right.
Right? And so when you say the Father's heart, that could mean rejection to a lot of people.
Sure.
Or because if you're telling yourself the Father's heart, if that piece of your heart has not had healing, you might be drawn to things that absolutely do represent your paradigm of a father.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. Well, that's probably, we should make a note that we will, how do you, we need to talk about next time. We just don't have time today, but we need to talk about the response to that question.
Right.
Yes.
That stands out to me as someone who I mean, I have experienced a ton of healing at this point, but the reality is that I have no idea what it's like to grow up with an actual dad.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah, how do we discern the Father's heart? Okay, great, Randy. Thank you.
Oh, the corn boil.
Yeah, so maybe we'll talk about that on another one, is how to discern the Father's heart.
Well, I mean, one of the big topics that I've heard lots of times, like, and even statistics back this up, is that, well, I'd have to check on this, but that our current generation is one of the most fatherless generations.
Right.
I don't want to say ever, but perhaps in a while.
Right.
Like in this modern age.
Right.
And so when we speak to people as God as Father who are unhealed in that father wound.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
What do they hear?
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying we shouldn't.
Sure.
I'm just putting out the question of, is that more confusing, or does it have the opposite result and suggest something better?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, so we can talk about what is the Father's heart like.
Is this interesting to people? Would you be interested
raise your
in hearing
hand.
about this?
Raise your hand if you want us to talk next time about.
Raise hands.
Yeah, well, you can raise your hand on the thing. If you want to hear us talk about what the Father's heart is like on our next live stream, because that would be a good one then. Because it goes even more into the topic of how do I discern, what should it sound like when people talk about the Father's heart?
Yeah.
The other thing is, so that's one. The other thing, and I'll say this because then we'll have to, and Jason and Allison, is that for discernment to flourish, my ability to discern, the two things that are probably the greatest, if they're present, the greatest aids to discernment are humility and love. Humility and love. Humility and love for all people. That's what I mean by that. Love for God and love for people. Because humility will keep me from needing to hear it to validate myself or justify myself.
You absolutely need humility.
Yes.
It's a non-negotiable.
For discernment.
I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, for discernment to grow, I need humility and love.
Hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for discernment to grow, I need humility and love.
Yeah.
And because if I have love for people, then I won't try and use what I've heard to either bring other people down or
like use people.
Yeah, use people. Yes, or exploit people. Yeah.
Things.
And so the two greatest aids to discernment are humility and love. And I guess I should clarify that we're assuming that there's a workable knowledge of Scripture in there too, because that's absolutely necessary for discernment as well. I love that John's language about testing every spirit, and this is how you discern whether a spirit is from God, is whether or not that spirit witnesses that Christ has come in the flesh. Like he gives it a theological test for, so 1 John 4:1, he very specifically says, if you understand proper way of thinking about Jesus, then it'll aid the way that you discern a spiritual influence. So, I will say that Scripture is absolutely necessary to that as well. But in terms of the practical ramifications, humility and love are necessary for discernment to increase.
Yeah.
Yeah.